Family Protective Services with us as well as the mother in this case. Mr. Hill, you're muted, sir.
Thomas Hill for Sloan Clark. I'm not sure whether he was served, but he's not here, not ready for the reason.
Okay, well, Mr. Clark appeared at our December 20th hearing, so he is involved in this case.
Thank you.
Okay, the court also notes that we have the Department of Family Protective Services with us as well as the mother in this case. Ms. Section, who would you like to call as a witness?
Elizabeth Trujillo.
Okay, Mr. Hill, if you'll raise your right hand for me, please. You swear the testimony you're going to provide in this case is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Sexton.
Thank you. Ms. Trujillo, where are Adeline and Roman currently placed?
They are placed with their cousins in the Vavra home.
And how are they doing in that placement?
They're doing really well. Addie is thriving in the home. She has all her medical and dental needs being met. She had a therapy session this week for the first time. Roman, she's excelling in school. She's doing really, really good in testing above average for her class in reading. Roman, he is doing well. He did initially have some issues adjusting to placement, but it does seem to be getting better now. He is also current on his medical and dental. He is behind on his shots, so they are playing catch up. He did have an evaluation for ECI this week, but he was not recommended any additional services at this time.
Okay. And has Ms. Wilford been able to visit with her children?
Yes, she has.
And where do those visits occur?
Those visits occur in the area of the Vavra home or in a public location.
Okay. And has she been able to make her visits?
She has, for the most part. She averages about one visit a week.
Okay. And on Monday, we had a family group conference. Is that correct?
Yes, we did.
And Ms. Williford and Mr. Clark attended that conference with their attorneys. Is that correct?
Yes.
And at the time, we discussed the services for the parents, correct?
Correct.
And has Ms. Williford had an opportunity to sign her family plan of service?
I did provide her a copy with her family plan of service, and it has been filed with the court, but she has not signed it.
Okay. And what services are we asking Ms. Williford to work?
For Ms. Williford, we are asking for her to maintain legal employment and provide documentation to the department. We are asking for her to maintain safe and stable housing free of drug use or criminal activity and to allow me access to the home. For Ms. Williford to notify the department of her current residence address and phone number, or if there's any changes to notify the department. To maintain contact with the department at least monthly to discuss the case. To participate and complete protective parenting and demonstrate the skills she's learned and provide documentation of attendance and a copy of her completion certificate. For Ms. Williford to complete a drug and alcohol assessment and follow all recommendations of that. For Ms. Williford to refrain from any substance abuse and to submit to random drug testing within 12 hours of request. For Ms. Williford to attend and participate in individual counseling and follow all recommendations of the provider. To sign a release of medical and mental health records to the department. For Ms. Williford to complete an intake and assessment with Bluebonnet Trails for mental health case management and follow all recommendations. For Ms. Williford to participate and complete a psychological evaluation and follow all recommendations of the provider. For Ms. Williford to participate in a domestic violence awareness program and to provide documentation of attendance and follow the recommendations. And for Ms. Williford to be able to demonstrate behavioral changes that indicate a lifestyle change and ability to protect and provide for her children.
And are you asking for that to be made in order of the court?
Yes.
And as far as you mentioned, DV education classes, is that correct?
Yes.
And is that something we'd be willing to have incorporated into therapy?
Yes, I did speak to therapist Ms. Erin Mendoza, who does have availability for Ms. Williford and is able to incorporate domestic violence.
Okay. And why are we asking for a drug and alcohol assessment in this case?
Ms. Williford, when we met for our initial appointment and we completed a family strengths and needs assessment at that time, she did disclose that she has a long history of marijuana usage, and she did test positive for marijuana on a UA in January.
Okay. And Miss Williford has actually gotten started on some of her services. Is that correct?
Yes, she has.
And what has she done so far?
Ms. Williford has completed a psychological evaluation. We are just pending the results from that. She did take it in mid-January. She has attempted to set up protective parenting. She had not received a call back, but I did follow up with the provider yesterday, and they're sending her a link to her email to start protective parenting. So hopefully today she can start that. And she submitted to a drug test already. She reported that she did an intake for Bluebonnet Trails for her mental health. However, I've not received the documentation of that. She has signed a release of her medical and mental health records for me. And she has allowed me access to her home, and she is maintaining contact with me.
Okay. And I believe that Miss Williford did give us information about the medication that she's on right now. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So as far as the intake for Bluebonnet, what are you looking for there?
The documentation to see what they are recommending, if it's therapy that they're recommending or medication, because I do know that Ms. Williford was not, she felt like she was required to take medication, and we are not requiring her to take medication if that's not what they are recommending.
Okay. And that the fact that we're not requiring her to take medication, that was addressed in the family group conference. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And Ms. Harding indicated at the family group conference that she was going to ask that the case be dismissed today. Is that correct?
Yes, and for the children to be placed back with Ms. Williford.
And what is the department's position on that?
The department is not in agreement with that. We would like additional time for Ms. Williford to work and engage in some services.
Okay. And as far as if Ms. Harding were to ask for a return and monitor, what would be the department's position on that?
We are not in agreement at this time. Ms. Williford is making some progress because she is initiating some services. However, there's just not been a substantial amount of time in this case to monitor her mental health. We did discuss some stress that Ms. Williford is having, learning the difficulties of being a single parent. So we would like some resources put in place before the children actually were to be returned home to Ms. Williford.
Okay. And Ms. Harding has identified as the main concern that she thinks that this case involves is mental health. Does the department think that mental health is the only issue that needs to be addressed here, or are there other issues the department's concerned about?
There is other issues. There's issues of domestic violence that has been reoccurring over the years that the children have witnessed and been a part of. There is issues with substance abuse that we would like to address. So Ms. Williford can receive the right services.
Okay. And Mr. Clark attended the family group conference. And did he mention that he has got a court date coming up in Lockhart?
Yes.
And is that regarding the domestic violence incident against Ms. Williford?
Yes, it is.
And did he indicate that the emergency protective order expired on the 25th of December?
Yes, that is what he reported.
Okay. And we also went over services for Mr. Clark. Is that correct?
Yes.
And what services are we asking him to work?
For Mr. Clark, we are asking for him to maintain legal income and provide documentation to the department, to maintain safe and stable housing, free of drug use or criminal activity. For Mr. Clark to disclose any arrests, criminal or civil investigations involving him or any new relationships he becomes involved in. For Mr. Clark to notify the department of a current resident's address and phone number, or if it changes, to notify the department. To maintain contact with the department at least monthly. To participate in protective parenting and provide documentation of successful completion and provide that to the department. For Mr. Clark to refrain from any illegal substances and to submit to random drug testing within 12 hours. If he were to test positive, we are asking for him to be referred to an OSAR evaluation. For Mr. Clark to attend and participate in a psychological evaluation and follow our recommendations. For Mr. Clark to participate in individual counseling and follow our recommendations. For Mr. Clark to participate in a batterer's intervention program and follow all recommendations. And for Mr. Clark to be able to demonstrate behavioral changes that indicate a lifestyle change and ability to protect his child.
Okay, and did Mr. Clark sign that family plan of service?
He did not, but I have emailed him a copy since he is residing out of state.
Okay, and since he's residing out of state, what are we going to do regarding setting up services for him?
I did inform him because he is out of state. We are unable to pay for his services. But if he were to come to Texas, to notify me as soon as possible, and that is something that we can work on setting up.
Okay, and there was also discussion of a child support order out of Louisiana where Mr. Clark was ordered to pay child support. Is that correct?
Yes.
And did Mr. Clark mention at the family group conference that order has been changed?
I believe so. He mentioned that, and that he was no longer paying.
Okay, and did you ask him to provide any legal paperwork to his attorney regarding that?
Yes, I believe it was mentioned at the conference.
Okay, I pass the witness.
Ms. Harding.
Let's see, Mr. Hio, in regards to the services, is there any service that Miss Williford has been asked to do that she hasn't completed?
No, not at this time. She has initiated setting some services up. It's just been a lack of communication between the providers and not having her email, but all of that should be taken care of now.
And then your family plan of service doesn't mention the name Erin Mendoza or provide her telephone number, does it?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay. Has that number been provided to Miss Williford or to me?
No, not at this time. I did inform Miss Mendoza of Miss Williford's number, though.
Okay. And you asked Miss Williford to sign a release, is that correct?
Yes.
Did you do that outside of my presence?
Yes.
Is there a time limit on the release?
I believe it is 1 year.
1 year going backwards or 1 year going forward?
1 year from the date that it was signed.
Okay. Once you obtain that information, does it go into the department's file?
Yes.
And that's protected health information of Miss Williford, is that correct?
Yes.
Does the department have a policy or procedure to ensure that her sensitive medical, mental health, and history is not shared with, for example, a spouse or a parent who hasn't gone through the process to get that documentation?
Your Honor, I'm object as to relevancy.
Ms. Harding, what's your concern?
My concern is that my client's sensitive psychological, psychiatric, and medical history will be shared in violation of HIPAA with another party in this case, or with anyone who is maybe seeking custody in the future. In my experience, the department doesn't place a priority on protecting the health and mental health information of parents.
I think this is more a question of what gets redacted and what doesn't get redacted. So Mr. Hio is not in charge of the production of a file in these cases. Really your arguments with whoever the redactor is. So I'm sure they can note your concerns.
Your Honor, my primary concern is that it gets shared with Mr. Sloan Clark in this case. And I wasn't part of the procedure for getting the release signed. But I'll move on. In regards to the protective parenting, can you please identify how Miss Williford was not protective of her children?
The children have witnessed a lot of domestic violence between Miss Williford and not just Mr. Clark, but partners throughout the years. And I do not believe that she had protective capacities by having the children around while this was going on.
But at this time, where is Mr. Clark?
He reports he's in Louisiana.
And at this time, has Miss Williford dropped the criminal charges against Mr. Clark?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay. And at this time, has Miss Williford tested positive for anything other than THC?
No.
And has Miss Williford explained to you how come she tested positive for THC?
She reported it was from her vape that she uses and was using Delta 8.
Okay. And at this time, is Miss Williford already working with Blue Bonnet?
She reports that she has. However, I have not just seen the physical documentation of that.
Have you asked for it?
I did ask Ms. Williford for a copy.
Well, you also asked Ms. Williford for a release, correct?
Yes.
Have you asked for a copy of that documentation?
No.
Okay. At this time, is Ms. Williford's home unsafe?
No, not at this time. The only concern I would have is that Mr. Clark's name is on the lease. I know that Ms. Williford was working to figure out how to get him off the lease, just to ensure that he does not come to the home.
And so are you asking the court to enter an order that Mr. Clark stay 200 yards away from Ms. Williford and her residence?
I do believe that that would be very beneficial.
Okay. And that would be particularly true if he does have to come back to Caldwell County in order to proceed with defend himself against the criminal charges. Is that correct?
Yes.
And Ms. Williford has legal employment, is that correct?
Yes.
And she has safe and appropriate housing?
Yes, I would be still concerned though with the lease until his name is taken off of it, or with an order preventing
And
him from going.
have you referred Ms. Williford to any agency that can assist her in getting a protective order?
No, I have not.
Okay. And isn't it true that the Hays Caldwell County Women's Shelter doesn't work with families that are currently involved with Child Protective Services?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. So Ms. Williford's ability to obtain long-term and ongoing community support is not available as long as the department is involved. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I have no further questions.
Mr. Hilly,
Last time, Mr. Stone requested visits of his son Roman, but we couldn't because of protective order. Can we do that? Can we set up visits now?
Visits were court ordered not to occur until further order of the court. The concern the department would have would be that Roman had such a hard time adjusting to placement, and he was very scared of males. He even was resistant to Mr. Vavra in the very beginning. He is starting to warm up now. So I worry that if he were to have visits, that it would be another setback that the place would have to go through, as well as the consistency with Mr. Clark residing in Louisiana.
Okay. Can we set up some counseling to make the transition smoother?
Roman is only 18, 19 months.
I know, but for the father.
Yes, he is recommended in his family plan to participate in individual therapy. However, the department is cannot be responsible for the cost of it since he is residing out of state.
Are you able to send somebody to his residence, check it out, and that's in his state of Louisiana?
No, we are not able to do that.
Okay. Did he provide you any kind of feedback of services so far accomplished or signed up for? On his
No, he has
own?
not.
Thank you. And by the way, Ilona, I texted him, but there was no response. Thank you.
Mr. Grunberger.
Trujillo, so you guys have confirmation that Mr. Clark is actually in Louisiana right now, is that right?
That's what he has reported.
Okay, but so he participated remotely in the FGC this week, is that what happened?
Yes, sir.
Has mom, Ms. Williford, has she acknowledged any responsibility for domestic violence in terms of her choices?
She has.
I'm sorry?
She has.
She has. Okay. And is that something that she is supposed to work on in individual therapy?
Yes.
Okay. My understanding also is that Roman was having some pretty bad tantrums where he was doing some stuff that could be harmful, like throwing his head back and possibly hitting his head on the floor when he first got over there.
Yes, when he first got over there, he would throw some severe tantrums and just throw his body down wherever he was at. Ms. Vavra did address that with a pediatrician, but at that time when they went, the tantrums had reduced significantly, so they did not recommend a helmet or anything else at that time.
Okay, and you said the ECI evaluation was done and there, but they don't think there's any other interventions that need to be done?
Correct.
Okay. I pass the witness.
Ms. Sexton,
No further questions of this witness, Your Honor.
Ms. Hardy,
I'm sorry, Mr. Hio, when the children are returned home, whether it's today or in the future, is the department able to assist with childcare?
Yes, we would like to set that up for Roman to be in daycare and find a daycare that has opening and that accepts DCMS.
I have no additional questions.
okay. Mr. Hilly,
No additional questions, John. Thank you.
Mr. Grunberger,
No questions, Judge.
Ms. Sexton, any other witnesses you wish to call today?
Your Honor, based on the time, it's after 9:30. I will not call any other witnesses.
Okay, Ms. Harding, any witnesses you wish to call today?
Just Ms. Williford briefly.
Go ahead, Ms. Harding.
Ms. Williford, do you believe that your home is safe?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
And what changes have you made since your children were removed about 6 weeks ago?
I got a job. I'm assistant manager at a convenience store. Before the kids were removed, they didn't even really have a bedroom. Their bedroom was empty with an air mattress, and I've got them a complete bedroom set up. I have even purchased a washer and dryer since then. So we don't have to go to the laundromat. I've done anything that CPS has told me to do. I've been doing. I quit doing the vape pen, so that shouldn't be an issue anymore either. And that's, I mean, I have my vehicle. I have everything that I need for my kids to come home.
And in regards to the criminal charges against Mr. Clark, are you assisting law enforcement in pursuing those charges against him?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you gone and filed an affidavit asking that he not be prosecuted?
No.
Okay. And your grandmother, who testified and was supportive of you at the adversary hearing, is she in Texas currently?
No, ma'am. She's back in Louisiana.
Okay.
She's
And
coming back in about a week.
okay. And do you believe that with the assistance of daycare that you could provide a safe and appropriate home for your children?
Yes, ma'am.
And would you like them returned to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you like them to return to you today?
Yes, ma'am.
I have no further questions.
Mr. Hilly,
No questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Grunberger,
Sorry, Judge. Nothing further, Your Honor.
and Ms. Sexton.
Just very briefly, Ms. Williford, I think you told us at the family group conference that you were have been prescribed Abilify and Visceral. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And but you were not taking those you were not taking those consistently, there would be like up to a week where you wouldn't take
There
them.
was a week gap due to the weather because I was waiting on my medicine to come in the mail. So there was like a week gap because there was like a freeze. I don't know if you remember.
Mhm.
But there was a freeze, and so it like delayed the mail. So it was only supposed to be a 2 or 3 day gap without my medicine, which is because of the weather. I was supposed to have it was only supposed to be a 2 or 3 day gap, but it ended up being about a week because of due to the weather. They mailed the medicine, and the weather had delayed it.
Do you recall telling us at the family group conference that your doctor did not think you needed or was not requiring that you take the medicine on a daily basis? It was just as needed basis.
Yes, ma'am. The Visceral is for as needed, and the Abilify, which is 2 milligrams, is the lowest dose they have. They give it to children, and I'm supposed to take that daily.
Okay, so are you taking the Abilify daily right now?
Yes, ma'am. I have my medicine now. Yes, ma'am.
And what about the Visceral?
Yeah, I don't take that daily. I just take it when when I'm anxious or when I need to go to sleep and I'm anxious.
Okay. Are you anxious right now?
Not really, just a little bit because of this meeting.
Okay. You understand that we need to get the recommendations from your intake at Bluebonnet Trails, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know what they recommended for you?
I just have to go to therapy once a week, and then they check on my meds, make sure that that's still good and everything's up to date and current.
So they'll be responsible then for, what about like prescription refills and seeing if you need new or
Yes,
different?
they provide all that, so all them services.
Okay, and that's something that they can be offering during the CPS case, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I pass the
No,
witness.
Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Grunberger, any witnesses you wanted to call today?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. So, Mr. Grunberger, do you have a report from Ms. Ochoa and recommendations?
I do. Ms. Ochoa wanted me to pass along that the kids are doing well. Basically, it confirms what Ms. Trujillo said. They want, Patty particularly has been doing well in school, received an award for courage, being courageous. There is some concern for Addie, though. There has been some sexual acting out that they want to address. There's also a gymnastics class that she would like to be able to get Addie into. It costs a few $100s a month, and she's hoping that the department can make efforts to provide that after school for her. She really loves that. There are no requests right now for Roman. There was concern about his initial reaction, but given the ECI evaluation and his calming down, that seems okay. She recommends, there's a maternal great grandmother, or there is a great grandmother. I'm not sure if it's whose side that is, but who's been requesting some visits. And Ms. Ochoa said that she doesn't believe those should be unsupervised. I know no one's brought that up yet, but just in case that comes up for the court or anybody's requesting that. And Ms. Ochoa recommends that we continue with the kids in department's care, and that mom continue to make progress in services, and that we leave things status quo right now.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Grunberger. Mr. Hilly, anything on behalf of your client, Mr. Clark, today?
Oh, no, he just wanted, last time he wanted to request some visits, but I know that we have some obstacles. So he's not here, nothing right now. Thank you.
Ms. Harding?
Sorry, Your Honor. We would ask that the children be returned to Ms. Williford and that the department be ordered to provide daycare. If they are not returned, we would ask that the court authorize unsupervised visits. We would also ask that in regards to the direct testing, that Ms. Williford, because she is working and the expectation is going to be that she's participating in therapy, working with Blue Bonnet, working with her doctor, going to parenting classes, that she be given more than 12 hours in order to respond, because it may be difficult, if not impossible, for her to do that on any given day, particularly during the week, as she is working a full-time job as an assistant manager, and may not be able to get time off. In regards to the releases that she signed, I asked that in the future those be shared with me before my clients asked to sign any documentation of legal significance, and that information not be shared by the department. My client's psychological or psychiatric records not be shared with anyone in this case until they've at least gone through records management, or at least not with anyone, not my client, unless they've gone through record management and been appropriately redacted. So that would also mean that they not be filed in this court cause. Your Honor, I would ask that if the children aren't returned, that we have a quicker than normal review. As you've heard from the testimony, Addie is doing excellent in school. She's well adjusted, and that Roman doesn't need any ECI intervention. So despite the incident that brought this family to the attention of the court, Ms. Williford has clearly done an amazing and appropriate job raising these children. And in fact, was it not for Ms. Williford's own actions, this case would not have started. She did what she needed to do to protect her children. She acted responsibly, as we expect any and every parent to do. She now has identified relatives who are closer to her should she have a crisis in the future. And as you heard the testimony of Mr. Hio, she is safe. There are concerns, but Ms. Williford is safe.
Ms. Sexton.
Your Honor, I think what was really clear during the adversary hearing is that Ms. Williford's mental health issue was not some isolated issue based on some extraordinary circumstance. It was actually part of a long history of mental health issues that we want to make sure that we do not pull out too quickly, that she's stabilized, and that she stays on medicine if she needs to, and works through all these issues. The DV is not cured overnight, and that is something that we really want her to work on, because what came out in that hearing was a lot of domestic violence. As far as the other requests from Ms. Harding, as far as the drug testing, I will check with my client regarding more than 12 hours, but normally we give anywhere from we give up to like 24 hours. So again, I haven't had a chance to talk with my client about that. That just came up. Regarding the request to have Ms. Harding present when she signs releases, that was not brought to my attention that needed to be done. And just in talking with my caseworker before this about Ms. Williford signing releases, Elizabeth routinely mentions to clients, you can go over this with your attorney, and Ms. Williford apparently told her, no, I'm okay with signing it. So there was not any ill intent on our side. We were just trying to expedite getting those those releases.
Okay, so the court enters the following orders today. The placement of the children is going to be continued in the Vibra home. I aged this case at 57 days. This case had some significant concerns and danger posed to the children when it first started. I don't think that we, or me as the court, has seen enough stability at this point. It's one thing to say that there's current safety today, but some significant allegations brought these children to the department's care to begin with. So with that being said, the court does order the plans of service for both Ms. Williford and Mr. Clark in this case. Court also is entering a pretrial scheduler and a discovery control plan today. Okay, as to Mr. Clark, I am going to enjoin Mr. Clark from coming within 500 feet of Ms. Williford's residence. Ms. Williford, remember, that's just a piece of paper. If you have a problem, call 911, call the police. The only other thing about an injunction is that he has to know where you live in order to be enjoined from coming within 500 feet of that. So please discuss that with your attorney, Ms. Harding, so that you understand that. As to the gymnastics, the court is going to order the department to try to seek money from the Child Welfare Board for Addie's gymnastics. I am not going to order the department to pay for that gymnastics today. As to releases of information from Ms. Williford, I am going to order that those be provided first to Ms. Harding, at least for her viewing and review, before any further releases are given to Ms. Williford for her signature. I will remind the parties in this case that it is a part of the standard orders of this case or court that I do order parents to sign releases of information. Okay, as to the drug test, I'm going to order that Ms. Williford has up to 24 hours to appear for a drug test. So, Ms. Williford, I must admonish you again today in this case that your parental rights are subject to further restriction or even termination unless you're willing and able to provide your children, Roman and Adeline, with a safe and appropriate environment. Do you understand that warning, Ms. Williford?
Yes, sir.
Okay, please stay in contact with your caseworker as well as your attorney, Ms. Harding. Any other questions about the court's orders or any other items that the court needs to address today before we?
Yes, sir. I know that you had ordered that the department seek money from our Child Welfare Board. We do not have a Child Welfare Board in Caldwell County. And I've asked, and Sarah has informed me that, just as far as the department having the money to do that, the department does, in and of itself, does not have that money.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry to hear the Child Welfare Board went away here in Caldwell County, but Okay, so you can remove that from today's order, Ms. Sexton.
Okay.
Ms.
thank
Harding?
Your Honor, I'm sorry. I was conditionally appointed. We have provided an affidavit of indigence to the court coordinator and shared it with all parties. I didn't know how you wanted me to handle that, but was signed, but not in front of a notary by Ms. Williford. So wanted to let you know that that's out there.
I'm gonna see if it's uploaded in my system.
Didn't get the part about the redaction, what you were ordering regarding Ms. Harding's request.
I didn't order anything. The department's under an obligation to redact their files in accordance with state law, so I'm not addressing that at all.
Okay.
And now the affidavit of indigence, it was filled out by Ms. Wilford, filed to the continuation of the appointment of counsel in this case. So Ms. Harding, you are continued as Ms. Wilford's attorney in this case. Thank you for bringing that to the court's attention.
Welcome,
Thank
Your Honor.
everybody for being here today. It's about 9:50, so we're running fairly late, but I do think it was worth spending some extra time on this case. You are excused at this time. We'll see you back at a review hearing on April 13th, 2023 at 2 p.m. Thank you.
you, Your Honor.